Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX is out! A remake of the beloved Red and Blue Rescue Team games. And how is it doing? Why do people like this series again? Oh right, because they're not stupid. Anyway, Mystery Dungeon DX is out and the community is rejoicing. And I am too. Red Rescue Team was a game I played through an absurd amount of times growing up. Beat it, play it, start over, that was my routine. And even a dumb kid with ADD like me was able to put up with the, grind without getting bored. So I am going to review this from the perspective of someone that has actually played the game to completion and knows how to think proactively. Let's get started. First things first, it is inevitable to bring up the value of the game and how it compares to the original. As it is a remake of a game I hold very closely to my heart. Does it succeed as a remake? Yes. But does it succeed as a good game in its own right? Yes! Pokémon Mystery Dungeon is a spin-off series created by Chunsoft. It is essentially an isekai before there were isekais. Think about it. You're a human transported to a world you don't understand where you turn into a Pokémon, level up, fight monsters, and try to find a way home. The original games, Red and Blue Rescue Team, were a bit clunky in execution, but that more or less added to the experience overall, and the challenge. But Rescue Team DX makes pretty much all the right calls in what to streamline and what to keep like the original. For example, the dojo now is strictly for training Pokemon. It's not a series of mazes to complete for a reward anymore. Instead, you are coming here solely with the intention of leveling up. That being said, I feel sort of mixed on friend areas. It feels like a weird amalgamation in order to make it simple, but also make it like the tedious original. To explain, in the original, you had to individually go to every friend area, select it, go to the Pokemon you want, select them, then leave, and go on your mission. This time, you have a saved team that you can edit, and you don't have to bother. Good call. Though, oddly enough, the friend areas do still exist in the form of camps, and they don't really feel like places anymore that you could visit. One of my favorite things in the original was to go to a really epic friend area and just chill. That being said, you still technically go to them via an overlay, but it's weird because you don't really do a lot here except for a couple of things. Took me a solid 5 minutes to figure out I couldn't add Pokemon to my team from here. However, you still access features allowing you to boost your Pokemon like the original. Replacing the IQ system are the rare qualities, and yeah, they're better. The thing I didn't like about the IQ system was that you would just spam gummies on your best mons and they'd be pretty overpowered in exploration. Now it's a lot more simple, and if you don't like your current rare quality, feed them a gummy and let RNG do its thing. Sometimes you'll get an ability, and then it is your call to apply that to them or not. Pokemon can only have one rare quality at a time, so friend areas are okay, I think. They're okay, though they still have their original music and it shows the original sprites used back in the day. Yeah, that's a pretty cheap way to get to me. It's a nice little splash of nostalgia. Oh, and speaking of nostalgia, this game has it. Oh boy, does it have it. But one thing I always admired about the developers of Mystery Dungeon is that they never relied on nostalgia to sell their series. They use nostalgic value correctly, aka using it to add flavor instead of making it the main dish. This is of course being compared to Game Freak, who span Kanto just because it's Kanto, and that means don't make the original Kanto games any better because it's Kanto, and you can never get any better than Kanto because Kanto. There really is nothing in this game that is so nostalgic to the point of being pandering. Although, I should bring this up, and it's not a con, it's actually a pro, but I feel weird saying it is a pro. Basically, this game remixes old soundtracks. Shocker. However, a lot of these tracks just feel like the same exact track in the original, like the boss battle theme. Listen to that! I am convinced it is directly ripped from the original with no remixing. I mean, I don't mind. I love the original soundtrack to death. It's just funny to me that they made no attempt to change certain soundtracks and not others. And the entire spectrum here is represented. I'm talking Sky Tower, my favorite track from the original game. I adore the remix here. It's literally 50% new and 50% old. Like I said, I'm not complaining. If anything, I admire the moxie. Another thing to note is that new tracks are in this game. Or new tracks, because I'm pretty sure these are just taken from Gates to Infinity. They are remixed though. I will say it is funny how their remixes of the new soundtracks is just to add akin to the original Game Boy sound font. It's like putting this game in lime green and having a cutoff aspect ratio. Not sure if it makes it exactly a Game Boy game, but A for effort. Various quality of life changes make the game a lot easier. And honestly, I don't mind when the difficulty is stifled because of better optimization. Even if EXP share is in the game and it affects every Pokemon, even when they don't go to dungeons themselves.
Did you like it?
But in all seriousness, I don't mind it compared to Sword and Shield. In the original, leveling up was kind of a grind. I said kind of a grind. And considering you only have 2 Pokemon for most of the story mode, this feature makes sure your team is always up to date to make sure dungeons aren't too absurdly difficult, just because you want to bring Magnemite and you forgot about him midway through the game. Magnemite! Also, being able to store jobs is probably one of the best features ever, if I'm being frank. It is ridiculously helpful for stacking up jobs, because let's face it, the only time you're ever going back to Mount Blaze is when you're doing 8 jobs at once. You don't go to the grocery store to pick up milk without picking up some bacon and eggs. Why did I use breakfast in that metaphor? You can also fast forward dialogue by holding down B. The original Mystery Dungeon games derive their difficulty from everything being really hard to do. Go figure. You had to make sure your team was small enough to recruit Pokemon, you had to make sure you had the proper friend area to recruit Pokemon, you had to plant your feet firmly on the ground and defeat a Pokemon in their face in order to recruit it. The reason I'm bringing up recruiting so much is because I feel like that is the biggest new thing in this game. It is easier to recruit Pokemon now. Okay, actually that's undercooking it a bit. Let me rephrase. There is easier to recruit, and then there is I am assembling a militia to rival a small country. Holy smokes, you collect Pokemon in this game like candy! Which again, I don't mind. It actually makes catching them all an obtainable goal, which pretty much no Mystery Dungeon fan ever considers even doing. That's a main series thing. Kinda. But you add to your team, and you add to your team, and you add to your team until your team doesn't even look like a team anymore. In comparison, you had 4 maximum in the original. You could recruit 1 mid-dungeon, but you can only bring 3 in. In this one, it's still 3, but you can have 8 maximum on your team. That is nuts. I do feel like this should be noted, but I can't think of anywhere else to say this. You can autoplay this game. Straight up. Basically, if you press L, you automatically explore the dungeon, picking up any items along the way. It stops when you get into a fight, but thing is if you press A, it automatically selects the best move and uses it. So in a way, the game plays itself. Not sure how I feel about this. On one hand, the game is playing itself. Is that actually rewarding? Hard to call. Though I will say it is very convenient, and it's not like the move selected is always the best move every time. Sometimes I don't need to use Absorb. Sometimes I need to save those power points for later. Which leads to the other hand. It's not like you're not capable of navigating this dungeon yourself. If you're going to die in a dungeon, autoplay doesn't really change that. Heck, it probably hurts more than it helps in terms of strategy. So the original sense of accomplishment in completing dungeons isn't lost in this game. Not to mention the game counterbalances pretty well. I was rather surprised by how much damage the bosses were tanking by the end of it. And not only that, their size allows even a single move to do damage to all 3 spots in front of them. So no more just grouping on a boss and taking turns kicking it. And not to spoil too much, but they even added hazards to some of the boss battles, adding a lot more strategy to the fray. I would say another way the game balances difficulty is autosave. I hate it in a good way. Okay, so the reason I hate it is because you have to be absolutely sure you are ready to take on a mystery dungeon. Because if you're not, and all your Pokemon faint, your items are going bye-bye. One of the things people were super hyped about in this game was the inclusion of more Pokemon that didn't appear in the original. That is me as well. Guilty as charged. I was super looking forward to it, and it's about as bare bones as you can imagine. Any Pokemon past Generation 6, and I'm saying Generation 6 pretty loosely here, because really the only Pokemon past Generation 5 is just Sylveon. So really any Pokemon past Generation 4 4 are not in this game, sadly, making representation for Generations 7 and 8 completely non-existent in the Mystery Dungeon series at this point. That being said, I honestly am not surprised to see any inclusion from Sword and Shield in the game, considering this was probably in development before those entries even released. But I am very much surprised we didn't get Alolan forms. At least. There's not that many and people love them. They could have done them if they wanted to, but it seems their priority was to include evolutions to past Pokemon that evolved from Generations 1 through 3 and Lucario, because you can't forget about Lucario, the second mascot of the Pokemon series. Honestly, I was really hoping they would include evolutions from Generation 8. Makes me wish the game was delayed to accommodate Cursula, Sirfetch'd, or maybe even Obstagoon. I mean, delaying the game would have probably helped it, considering it is releasing against Animal Crossing, another Nintendo IP, which comes out a meager 2 weeks after it. I really don't understand the choice here, but they do include Mega Evolutions and Shiny Pokemon. Those are always fun to have. Even if there are only a few dozen Shiny Pokemon available, I'll take it. I'll take what I can get. My ultimate verdict for Mystery Dungeon DX, and this coming from a massive Mystery Dungeon fan, is it's good, but wait for the price drop if you can. There simply isn't enough content in this game to justify $60 in my opinion. The game has the exact same story and post-game. A couple things here and there, of course, but nothing mind-blowing. If it was $40, it would be an easy must-own for a Mystery Dungeon fan. But for now, just wait for the price to drop if you can. Though, considering it is a Nintendo game, that pretty much means never. Thanks so much for watching this review. In honor of the release of another Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, I will be giving away the original Mystery Dungeon waifu Shiny Celebi in Generation 8. Sword and Shield. For those of you who do not know. Just leave a comment below telling me your experience with this spin-off series and you'll be entered. It'll expire in a week. So that should be that date. Yes. So, if you're coming back to this video 10 years from now, you probably shouldn't expect to be entered. Is that all? Oh, check out my other videos. Bye.